A man was driving in a very rural area. Suddenly, he saw a sign, St. Mary's Convent and Brothel, all welcome, 10 miles. He was very surprised, and when he saw the St. Mary's sign, he turned off and stopped in the parking lot. He knocked on the door, and an elderly nun opened it. He said, "I am here for the brothel." The nun just nodded and took him down a long and winding corridor. At the end, next to a door, there sat an even older nun. She said nothing and just pointed at a small sign saying $200. He paid, and the nun opened the door and pushed him through. As the door locked behind him, he saw he was back in the parking lot, and in front of him was a small sign, "You have just been screwed by the nuns of St. Mary." A policeman is driving past a roadside apple stand when he notices the sign, "Apple seeds, guaranteed to make you smarter, $20 per seed." He pulls over and informs the vendor that it is fraud and false advertising to make absurd claims like this. No, the vendor tells the cop. "My apples are a special variety, a scientific miracle. Buy just one seed, eat it, and you will notice an increase in intelligence. If not, I promise to refund your $20. "All right," says the cop, "but if this doesn't work, I'm shutting your operation down." He hands over a $20 bill, takes the seed, chews it up, and waits for it to kick in. After a few moments, he says, "Even if you're not lying, I could have bought a whole bag of your apples and had enough seeds to last me months." "Ah, yes," says the vendor. "It's working already." A man absolutely hated his wife's cat and decided to get rid of him one day by driving him 20 blocks from his home and leaving him at the park. As he was getting home, the cat was walking up the driveway. The next day, he decided to drive the cat 40 blocks away. He put the beast out and headed home. When he reached his driveway, there was the cat again. He kept taking the cat further and further, but the cat would always beat him home. One day, he decided to drive hundreds of miles away. He drove out of town, through the desert, and into the next state until he reached what he thought was a safe distance from his home. He let the cat out and headed back. Hours later, the man calls home to his wife. "Jen, is the cat there?" "Yes," the wife answers. "Why do you ask?" "Put him on the phone. I'm lost and need directions." A city boy was getting ready to move to the country. He went to a local horse breeder and bought a fine-looking horse for $1,000 and told the man he'd be back in a week when he moved in to pick it up. A week later, the city boy drives his brand new truck and horse trailer to the rancher's ranch to pick up the horse. The rancher says, "Sorry, mister, the horse you bought just died yesterday." The city man thinks about this for a moment and says, "Okay, load it up in the trailer." "The dead horse?" asks the rancher. "Yep," says the city man. A month later, the rancher sees the city man at the local feed mart and says, "Say, what did you do with that dead horse?" "I auctioned it off for $5 a ticket. I sold 500 tickets and made $2,500 and bought myself an even better horse," says the man. The rancher says, "But what did you do after the drawing?" "Well, I told the winner that the horse had died and I gave him his $5 back." A blind guy walks into a primarily female bar. During a break in the music, he loudly says, "Hey, y'all want to hear a blonde joke?" Being blind, he doesn't realize how many blonde women are in the bar. The bartender walks up to him and tells him, "All right, man, I know you're blind and new around here, so let me offer you some advice. I am 6'5" and blonde. I wrestled in college and I work out every day. The girl to your left is blonde and she's an MMA fighter who paralyzed an opponent last year by accident. The girl to your right is blonde and she's a boxer. The girl at the table behind you is blonde and she just got out of prison for killing a man. At the table next to her is yet another blonde who beats up people for a drug ring and frequently escapes from jail to enact revenge on people who don't pay up. Now tell me, cowboy, do you really want to tell a blonde joke?" The blind man sighs and says, "Nah, I don't want to have to explain it 5 times. A woman comes home early and finds her husband in bed with a girl. She is furious and threatens to kill them both. The husband says, "Believe me, darling, this is just a misunderstanding. I was driving home and saw this young lady trying to catch a ride, so I decided to give her a lift. I ask her where she needs to go, and she tells me she wants to visit some relatives but isn't sure about their address. So I took her home so she could check her phone book. Once there, I saw her dress was pretty ragged, so I decided to give her your old dress. Nearly 2 years that it's been hanging in the closet and you never wore it. Then I saw her shoes were also about to fall apart, so I gave her your old shoes, which have been doing nothing but collecting dust for 3 years. Of course, she said thanks, and then asked me, "Excuse me, sir, but is there anything else in this house your wife never uses?" As the man made his way to his seat at the World Cup final, he couldn't help but feel excited. But as he sat down by the pitch, he noticed the seat next to him was empty. What a waste, he thought to himself. Who would have a seat like this and not use it? Curiosity getting the best of him, he leaned over to his neighbor and asked if someone would be sitting there. "No," the neighbor replied, "the seat is empty." The man couldn't believe it. "This is incredible," he exclaimed. But seriously, who in their right mind would pass up the chance to watch the World Cup final from this seat? That's when the neighbor dropped a bombshell. "Actually, the seat belongs to me. I was supposed to come with my wife, but she passed away. This is the first World Cup final we haven't been to together since we got married." The man's heart sank. "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. That's terrible." But then he had an idea. "Couldn't you find someone else to take her seat? A friend, relative, or even a neighbor?" The neighbor shook his head and said, "No, they're all at the funeral." A woman named Lorraine Lee introduced her boyfriend Frank to her family for the first time. As Frank greeted Mr. and Mrs. Lee, Lorraine's stunning sister Claire whispered something to him. Curious and suspicious, Lorraine decided to check on them and found Frank and Claire in bed. Frank pleaded for another chance. Reluctantly, Lorraine agreed, but made it clear that he must remain faithful. Years passed, and Frank remained loyal to Lorraine throughout their engagement, marriage, and even when they had children. However, he couldn't shake his thoughts about Claire. She consumed his mind at work, during meals, and in his dreams. One fateful morning, tragedy struck when Lorraine was fatally struck by a school bus while dropping off their children at school count. At Lorraine's funeral, Frank joined the entire Lee family in mourning. They all praised Lorraine's qualities: a devoted daughter, a loving mother, and a caring sister. The minister noticed a smile on Frank's face and questioned the reason behind it. Frank revealed that he had overheard Claire speaking to the minister, leading him to a realization. Without hesitation, he began singing, "I can see Claire Lee now, Lorraine has gone." A family took their frail, elderly mother to a nursing home and left her, hoping she would be well cared for. The next morning, the nurses bathed her, fed her a tasty breakfast, and set her in a chair at a window overlooking a lovely flower garden. She seemed okay, but after a while, she slowly started to tilt sideways in her chair. 2 of the attentive nurses immediately rushed up to catch her and straighten her up. Again, she seemed okay, but after a while, she slowly started to tilt over to her other side. The nurses rushed back and once more brought her back upright. This went on all morning and repeated again the following day. On the second afternoon, the family arrived to see how the old woman was adjusting to her new home. "So, Ma, how is it here? Are they treating you all right?" "It's pretty nice," she replied, "except they won't let me fart." A retired couple sitting at home was reliving their 50 years of marriage together. The wife finally had gotten the courage to ask, "What's the cigar box under the bed you told me to never open?" The husband sat a moment and then got up, abruptly leaving the room. When he returned, he had the cigar box. He sat down and opened it. Inside were 3 $50 bills. "I wasn't always the man I am today. I haven't always been faithful. Times were tough when we were younger, and it caused us to struggle even more. But every time I was unfaithful, I put $50 in this box to remind myself how much I was hurting us." The wife sat silent a few minutes. She had tears in her eyes when she stood up and went outside. As she drove away, her husband feared he might have hurt her too badly for their marriage to survive. To his surprise, she returned after a while, and she had a jar with $50.05 in it. She explained that she had also been unfaithful and made the gentleman leave something behind so she too would have a reminder. The husband seemed saddened and relieved, but confused at the same time. The wife asked his reaction. "What do you mean? Who's the a-hole that left 5 cents?" "What do you mean? They all left 5 cents. 4 men are in the hospital waiting room waiting for their babies. The nurse walks in and tells the first man, "Congratulations, you're having twins." The man responds, "That's a crazy coincidence. I work for the Minnesota Twins." The nurse tells the second man, "Congratulations, you're having triplets." The man responds, "That's a crazy coincidence. I work for the 3M company." The nurse tells the third man, "Congratulations, you're having quadruplets." The third man responds, "That's a crazy coincidence. I work at the Four Seasons Hotel." The fourth man is screaming and banging his head on the wall. The nurse asks him, "What's wrong?" He responds, "I screwed up. I work at 7-Up." A very attractive nurse was working a hectic schedule of double shifts all week, so she didn't really have time to do laundry. She had no clean underwear, so she just figured she'd throw on some scrubs and head to work. Her shift that day was a nightmare. She lost 3 elderly patients while she was in the room cleaning. She took a short break to mourn, then headed to care for another, slightly younger patient. As she was walking to his room, she pleaded to God, "Please don't take this one too." She walked into the room and noticed that one of his socks was on the floor. She bent down to pick it up, and all of a sudden, she heard the heart monitor beep loudly and freaked. She looked at him and said, "Are you okay?" He said, "Yes, I'm fine, but I think you should know your scrubs have a hole in them." A married couple went to the hospital to have their baby delivered. Upon their arrival, the doctor said he had invented a new machine that would transfer a portion of the mother's labor pain to the father. He asked if they were willing to try it out. They were both very much in favor of it. The doctor set the pain transfer to 10% for starters, explaining that even 10% was probably more pain than the father had ever experienced before. But as the labor progressed, the husband felt fine and asked the doctor to go ahead and kick it up a notch. The doctor then adjusted the machine to 20% pain transfer. The husband was still feeling quite well. Since the pain transfer was obviously helping out the wife considerably, the husband encouraged the doctor to transfer all the pain to him. The wife delivered a healthy baby with virtually no pain. She and her husband were ecstatic. When they got home, the mailman was dead on the porch. 3 friends married women from different parts of the world. The first man married a Greek girl. He told her that she was to do the dishes and house cleaning. It took a couple of days, but on the 3rd day, he came home to see a clean house and dishes washed and put away. The second man married a Thai. He gave his wife orders that she was to do all the cleaning, dishes, and cooking. The first day, he didn't see any results, that the next day he saw it was better. By the 3rd day, he saw his house was clean, the dishes were done, and there was a huge dinner on the table. The third man married a girl from Newfoundland, Canada. He ordered her to keep the house cleaned, dishes washed, lawn mowed, laundry washed, and hot meals on the table for every meal. He said the first day he didn't see anything, and the second day he didn't see anything either, but by the 3rd day some of the swelling had gone down and he could see a little out of his left eye, and his arm was healed enough that he could fix himself a sandwich and load the dishwasher. He still has some difficulty when he pees. An old woman walks into a singles bar looking for a little action. A distinguished older gentleman approaches her and they really hit it off. After a few drinks, they decide to get a hotel room and get it on. As they sit naked on the bed, the old man takes out his hearing aids and moves in. The old woman stops him and says, "Before we do this, I should tell you that I have acute angina." The old man looks at her, smiles, and says, "I sure hope so, because you got ugly boobs." The local charity realized that it had never received a donation from the city's most successful lawyer, so a volunteer paid the lawyer a visit in his lavish office. The volunteer opened the meeting by saying, "Our research shows that even though your annual income is over $2 million, you don't give a penny to charity. Wouldn't you like to give something back to your community?" The lawyer thinks for a minute and says, "First, did your research also show that my mother is dying from a long, painful illness, and she has huge medical bills that are far beyond her ability to pay?" Embarrassed, the rep mumbles, No, I didn't know that. Secondly, says the lawyer, did it show that my brother, a disabled veteran, is blind and confined to a wheelchair and unable to support his wife and 6 children? The stricken rep begins to stammer an apology, but is cut off again. And thirdly, did your research also show that my sister's husband died in a dreadful car accident, leaving her penniless with a mortgage and 3 children, one of which is disabled and another that has learning disabilities requiring an array of private tutors? The humiliated rep, completely beaten, says, "I'm so sorry, I had no idea." And the lawyer says, "So, if I didn't give any money to them, what makes you think I'd give any to you?" The pandemic swept over the land and finally affected this one small town and one family in particular. Little Billy's beloved grandfather fell sick and had to be taken to the hospital. The family checked in with him virtually several times a week, and Billy's mother coached him on what to say during these video visits. "How are you? Get well soon. We love you." Finally, a day came when the family learned that grandfather had taken a turn for the worst and would have to go on a ventilator. He would, of course, be unable to talk after that. Billy's mother gave him instructions. "Now, Billy, grandfather is very sick now. The doctors will have to work very hard to help him. We have to give grandfather encouragement. So when you speak to him today, say, 'I hope they pull you through.'" So they logged in for the visit. Grandfather came on the screen and Billy's mother nudged him to speak. "Hello, how are you?" The grandfather, pale and thin, answered in a thin, raspy voice, "I'm at the death's door." Billy answered, "I hope they pull you through." 2 sisters, one blonde and one brunette, inherit the family ranch. Unfortunately, after just a few years, they're in financial trouble. In order to keep the bank from repossessing the ranch, they need to purchase a bull so that they can breed their own stock. The brunette balances their checkbook, then takes their last $600 out west to another ranch where a man has a prize bull for sale. On leaving, she tells her sister, "When I get there, if I decide to buy the bull, I'll contact you to drive out after me and haul it home." The brunette arrives at the man's ranch, inspects the bull, and decides she does want to buy it. The man tells her that he can sell it for $599, no less. After paying him, she drives to the nearest town to send her sister a telegram to tell her the news. She walks into the telegraph office and says, "I want to send a telegram to my sister telling her that I've bought a bull for our ranch. I need her to hitch the trailer to our pickup truck and drive out here so we can haul it home." The telegraph operator explains that he'll be glad to help her, then adds it's just 99 cents a word. Well, with only $1 left after paying for the bull, the brunette realizes that she'll only be able to send her sister 1 word. After thinking for a few minutes, she nods and says, "I want you to send her the word comfortable." The telegraph operator shakes his head. "How is she ever gonna know that you want her to hitch the trailer to your pickup truck and drive out here to haul that bull back to your ranch if you send her the word comfortable?" The brunette explains, "My sister's blonde. She'll read it slowly." A young husband comes home one night and his wife throws her arms around his neck. "Darling, I have great news. I'm a month overdue. I think we're going to have a baby. The doctor gave me a test today, but until we find out for sure, we can't tell anybody." The next day, a guy from the electric company rings the doorbell because the young couple hasn't paid their last bill. "Are you Mrs. Smith? You're a month overdue, you know." "How do you know?" stammers the young woman. "Well, ma'am, it's in our files," says the man from the electric company. "What are you saying? It's in your files?" "Absolutely." "Well, let me talk to my husband about this tonight." That night, she tells her husband about the visit, and he, mad as a bull, rushes to the electric company offices the first thing the next morning. "What's going on here? You haven't on file that my wife is a month overdue? What business is that of yours?" jots the husband. "Just calm down," says the clerk. "It's nothing serious. All you have to do is pay us." "Pay you? And if I refuse?" "Well, in that case, sir, we'd have no option but to cut yours off." "And what would my wife do then?" asks the husband. "I don't know. I guess she'd have to use a candle." A woman goes into Cabela's to buy a rod and reel for her grandson's birthday. She doesn't know which one to get, so she just grabs one and goes over to the counter. The clerk was standing behind the counter wearing dark shades. She says to him, "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me anything about this rod and reel?" He says, "Ma'am, I'm completely blind, but if you'll drop it on the counter, I can tell you everything from the sound it makes." She doesn't believe him, but drops it on the counter anyway. He says, "That's a 6-foot Shakespeare graphite rod with a Zebco 404 reel and 10-pound test line. It's a good all-around combination, and it's on sale this week for only $20. She says, "It's amazing that you can tell all that just by the sound of it dropping on the counter. I'll take it." As she opens her purse, her credit card drops on the floor. "Oh, that sounds like a MasterCard," he says. She bends down to pick it up and accidentally farts. At first, she was really embarrassed, but then realized there's no way the blind clerk could tell it was her who tooted. Being blind, he wouldn't know that she was the only person around. The man rings up the sale and says, "That'll be $34.50, please." The woman is totally confused by this and asks, "Didn't you tell me the rod and reel were on sale for $20? How did you get $34.50? He replies, "Yes, ma'am. The rod and reel is $20, but the duck call is $11 and the catfish bait is $3.50. She paid it and left without saying a word. A man is sitting in a plane which is about to take off when another man with a dog occupies the empty seats alongside. The dog is sitting in the middle, and the first man is looking quizzically at the dog when the second man explains that they work for the airline. The airline rep said, "Don't mind Rover, he's a sniffer dog, the best there is. I'll show you once we get airborne and I set him to work." The plane takes off and levels out when the handler says to the first man, "Watch this." He tells the dog, "Rover, search." The dog jumps down, walks along the aisle, and sits next to a woman for a few seconds. It then returns to its seat and puts one paw on the handler's arm. He says, "Good boy." He turns to the first man and says, "That woman is in possession of marijuana, so I'm making a note of this and the seat number for the police, who will apprehend her upon arrival." "Fantastic," replies the first man. Once again, he sends the dog to search the aisles. The dog sniffs about, sits down beside a man for a few seconds, returns to its seat, and places both paws on the handler's arm. The airline rep says, "That man is carrying cocaine, so again, I'm making a note of this and the seat number." "I like it," says the first man. Once again, he sends the dog to search the aisles. Rover goes up and down the aisle of the plane, and after a while, he sits down next to someone and then comes racing back and jumps up onto the seat and craps all over the place. The first man is surprised and disgusted by this and asks, "What the heck is going on?" The handler nervously replies, "He just found a bomb." Two American girls were biking through the scenic hills of Scotland when they spotted an old man fast asleep under a tree. The view was so peaceful, they stopped to snap a photo. As they got closer, they noticed the man was dressed head to toe in traditional Scottish attire, kilt, tam, and all, snoring gently, completely unaware. One girl whispered, "Do you think it's true what they say about what Scotsmen wear under their kilts?" Her friend grinned, "Well, if we're ever gonna find out, this might be our only chance." Curiosity won. They quietly lifted the edge of the kilt for a quick peek, then giggled, gently lowered it, and stood there eye wide. "We just totally invaded that man's privacy," one said. "Then maybe we should leave a small gift," the other replied. So one girl pulled a ribbon from her ponytail and gently tucked it beneath the kilt, a harmless little souvenir. Then they tiptoed away, jumped on their bikes, and rode off into the countryside. A while later, the old man stirred. Stretching and yawning, he noticed something felt a little different. He peeked under his kilt, paused, peeked again, and with a puzzled grin said, "Well now, I don't know where you've been today, lad, but whatever happened, it looks like you came in third." 3 engineers and 3 lawyers were going to a convention. At the train station to the convention, one engineer said, "We can get on the train with only 1 ticket." The other group laughed but did not interject when the first group bought the ticket. When the conductor went around on the train for the tickets, the engineers all walked into the restroom. The conductor walked over, knocked on the door, and a single arm shot out, holding the ticket, which the engineer took. The engineers walked back to their seat after with no further problems. The other group applauded their idea. On the way back from the convention, the lawyers announced how they were going to try the same trick as the first group. In that case, one engineer started, "We will travel with no ticket at all." The lawyers laughed at the engineers but did not refuse their idea. On the train back, the conductor walked around to collect tickets and the lawyers giggled to themselves as they got up and entered the restroom. Waiting a moment, the engineers all got up, walked to the lawyer's restroom, and knocked on the door, and an arm shot out with the ticket. The engineers took it and entered the next restroom over. An extraordinarily handsome man decided he had the God-given responsibility to marry the perfect woman so they could produce children beyond comparison. With that as his mission, he began searching for the perfect woman. After a diligent but fruitless search up and down the East Coast, he started to head west. Shortly thereafter, he met a farmer who had 3 stunning, gorgeous daughters that positively took his breath. So he explained his mission to the farmer, asking for permission to marry one of them. The farmer simply replied, "They're all looking to get married, so you came to the right place. Look them over and select the one you want." The man dated the first daughter. The next day, the farmer asked for his opinion. "Well," said the man, "she's just a wee bit, not that you can hardly notice, pigeon-toed." The farmer nodded and suggested he date one of the other girls. So he went out with the second daughter. The next day, the farmer again asked how things went. "Well," said the man, "she's just a wee bit, not that you can hardly notice, cross-eyed." The farmer nodded and suggested he date the third girl to see if things might be better. So he did. The next morning, he rushed in exclaiming, "She's perfect, just perfect. She's the one I want to marry." So they were wed right away. Months later, the baby was born. When the man visited the nursery, he was horrified. The baby, while cute, had the ugliest face he had ever seen. He rushed to his father-in-law asking how such a thing could happen considering the parents. "Well," explained the farmer, "she was just a wee bit pregnant, not that you could hardly tell when you met her." During lunch at work, I ate 3 plates of beans, which I know I shouldn't. When I got home, my husband seemed excited to see me and exclaimed delightedly, "Darling, I have a surprise for dinner tonight." He then blindfolded me and led me to my chair at the dinner table. I took a seat, and just as he was about to remove my blindfold, the telephone rang. He made me promise not to touch the blindfold until he returned and went to answer the call. The beans I had consumed were still affecting me, and the pressure was becoming unbearable. So while my husband was out of the room, I seized the opportunity, shifted my weight to one leg, and let one go. It wasn't only loud, but it smelled like a fertilizer truck running over a skunk in front of a garbage dump. I took my napkin from my lap and fanned the air around me vigorously. Then, shifting to the other leg, I ripped off 3 more. The stank was worse than cooked cabbage. Keeping my ears carefully tuned to the conversation in the other room, I went on releasing atomic bombs like this for another few minutes. The pleasure was indescribable. Eventually, the telephone farewells signaled the end of my freedom, so I quickly fanned the air around me a few more times with my napkin, placed it on my lap, and folded my hands back on it, feeling very relieved and pleased with myself. My face must have been the picture of innocence when my husband returned, apologizing for taking so long. He asked me if I had peeked through the blindfold, and I assured him I had not. At this point, he removed the blindfold, and 12 dinner guests sitting around the table with their hands to their noses chorused, "Happy birthday." A guy walks into a bar with his pet monkey. He orders a drink, and while he's drinking, the monkey jumps all around the place. The monkey grabs some olives off the bar and eats them. Then he grabs some sliced limes and eats them. He then jumps onto the pool table and grabs one of the billiard balls.
To everyone's amazement, he sticks it in his mouth and somehow swallows it whole. The bartender screams at the guy, "Did you see what your monkey just did?" "No, what?" "He just ate the cue ball off my pool table whole." "Yeah, that doesn't surprise me," replied the guy. "He eats everything in sight. Sorry, I'll pay for the cue ball and stuff." The guy finishes his drink, pays his bill, pays for the stuff the monkey ate, and leaves. 2 weeks later, the guy is in the bar again and has his monkey with him. He orders a drink, and the monkey starts running around the bar again. While the man is finishing his drink, the monkey finds a maraschino cherry on the bar. He grabs it, sticks it up his butt, pulls it out, and eats it. Then the monkey finds a peanut and again sticks it up his butt, pulls it out, and eats it. The bartender is disgusted. "Did you see what your monkey did now?" "No, what?" replied the man. "Well, he stuck a maraschino cherry and a peanut up his butt, pulled them out, and ate them," said the bartender. "Yeah, that doesn't surprise me," replied the guy. "He still eats everything in sight. But ever since he had to pass that cue ball, he measures everything first."